Let me stop sharing my screen. Okay, I see Josh has joined. Let me make you a co-host.
Thank you. Sorry for getting here at kind of the last minute.
That's okay. That's fine, as long as you are here. All right, I think we're going to begin and I'll let people in. Happy holidays, everyone, and welcome to Drupal for Gov's December webinar. Our topic for the month is making the most of Drupal for civic engagement. And our speakers are Josh, Koenig, and Luis. So before I hand over the reins to our speakers, I want to talk to Drupal for Gov and all of the good things that we do. We are a community of open source advocates, and we love all things open source. So in addition to this monthly webinar that we hold every third Thursday at 3 p.m., we also have our Drupal GovCon conference, which just passed early November. We hold global training days or half-day training days, and we also participate with DrupalCon in Gov Summit. If you have any questions, you're interested in being a presenter, please reach out to us at our email, drupalforgov@gmail.com. We're also available on Slack or LinkedIn. A big shout out to our sponsors, because we can't do this without them, Portage Cybertech and Debug Academy. And I have to share other events. We're all about sharing other events for other Drupal-related conferences. So February 23rd to the 25th of 2024, we have the Florida Drupal Camp. And also in March of next year, we have the Nerd Summit and MidCamp. And also, we're always looking for spaces to host our half-days or multi-day events. So if your agency or organization has the space, please reach out to us. I've posted the email within this slide, drupalforgov+host@gmail.com. And if you missed this, currently right now, we are live streaming, but if you miss any session or if you want to catch up on a previous session, check us out on YouTube. And last but definitely not least, I'd like to introduce Josh Koenig, co-founder and chief strategy officer for Pantheon, and Luis, head of engineering at CI&T. Welcome. So
Thank you so much. Oh, go ahead.
Oh, you both have access, right?
Yep. I'm gonna do the screen share for our presentation, but I just wanted to say at the top, thank you so much for having us. It's a pleasure to be here. Luis, if you give me a second to find my right window, I will get us kicked off.
That's fine. I'll just use the opportunity. Thanks everyone for joining us on this session, and glad to be here.
Yep.
And if anybody has questions, please leave them in the chat and we will moderate them as the webinar goes along.
Yeah, good call. Yeah, we talked about this at the beginning. I think if people have questions, you just fire them away while you have them so you don't forget, and maybe we can pick them up in real time, but if not, we'll have time at the end to go over Q&A, because we're not going to talk for 58 minutes. All right, here we go. All right. So we are here to talk about making the most of Drupal for civic engagement. Hopefully that's on topic with everyone who's attending. Just a quick intro on us. I'll give a little bit more background and then invite Luis to do as well. So hi, I'm Josh. If I haven't seen you or met you before, I've been working with the Drupal project for over 20 years now. That feels weird to say out loud, but it's true. And about 12, a little more than 12 years ago, founded this company called Pantheon, which was trying to take what we were doing in our digital agency and turn it into a service, basically. We were doing projects for larger and more complex customers, and we realized that before we could even start on those projects, we needed some workflow so that multiple developers could collaborate effectively. And then we needed a way to keep releasing changes even after the site was live that was safe. And we needed to make sure that those live sites were always stable and could handle lots of traffic. And as consulting work, it was expensive because it would take a lot of time to do all of that by hand, and not everyone could afford it. But we realized that it was also really repetitive, and maybe we could just turn it into a service. And that was the genesis of Pantheon, and what we talk about as WebOps now is putting all those things together in a package so people who are adopting Drupal can spend more of their time and their budget focused on the site itself and what it's trying to do. So happy to be here to talk about how we've seen that work out in the government space specifically today. Luis, do you want to introduce yourself a little bit?
Thanks for that. So my name is Luis Ribeiro. I'm Brazilian, living in USA, working for a company called CINT. We are tech leaders on the lead digital transformation area. We have been supporting enterprises for on any kind of digital transformation, web app development, and so on. I lead specifically, I'm a head of engineer, lead specifically a digital platform area. I have been working with Drupal for the last 15 years and have been supporting different companies for different verticals, creating and finding the best solution for them. So I lead right now an army of something around 400 to 500 Drupal engineers, and then you count everyone from junior developer to system architects. And I have been developing a lot of websites for different sectors, including public sector and government. And glad to be here, and I hope we have a good time, guys. Thank you.
Awesome. All right. Well, then let's just get on into it. So the agenda here, we just did our intros. I'm going to talk a little bit about some of the challenges and sort of where we see Drupal's special value here. And then Luis is going to talk specifically about a case study with the city of Chattanooga that really sort of, is much, brings the specifics home. And we'll kind of recap, and then we'll have time for people who have questions to answer those. But again, if you have a question along the way, just drop it into chat, and that way we won't miss anything. So I think just starting off with the challenges for the public sector, and really thinking about it from the constituents' perspective, right? There's challenges on the entity side, right? Like you have a really high bar for security. Often budget is really a challenge and a very slow moving process. And then, sort of speaking of slow moving processes, right? These are organizations that have been around for a long time. It's, the antithesis of a startup environment where it's all greenfield and you get to pick up the latest tech and just run with it. If you're talking about organizations that have existed for if not hundreds of years and have been using technology as part of their mission for decades. Right. And so there's legacy stuff everywhere, as well as legacy processes, the way things got done, 10, 20, 30, 50 years ago, in some ways are still with us today, even when it comes to things like the web. And that's not unique to the government or the public sector, but I think it's particularly acute there and very widespread. I don't think there are very many. I mean, I don't know of actually any entities of any material scale that don't struggle with these challenges. And so the good news about that is that we can all help each other out. Government and public sector entities are not in competition with one another because they're serving their constituents. And maybe to the extent that like different places try to advertise, a better life in New Providence, move here. That's not really how these things work. Like we're all in it together to try to serve our constituents, which is why they're such a great fit with open source. I think actually just to stick with that for a second, the other thing about this is to think about it from the constituent perspective, which is the big challenge is that people want more. They want to be able to get more done online. And the past 3 years have taught us anything, it's that it's sometimes very necessary to get a lot done online. And to a significant extent, a lot of the ways in which constituents and citizens, or however we want to think of it, interact with these entities, it's through paperwork processes. It's through engaging with the bureaucracy. Actual value in engagement is to get a form filled out. People don't want to do that by going down to the city office and finding the right place to pick the form out of the library and writing on it with a pen. They want to be able to do it online from their home, much more cost effective, much more time effective for them, and probably cost effective for the entity. So there's a tremendous demand to actually really transform the way that services are delivered. And then if you think about it as, one of the big services that's delivered is just information. Like when are things happening? What day is trash pickup on my street, right? Like that is information that I expect to be able to find online now. And, there's a lot of information that even a mid-sized city needs to manage. And if they don't have good tools for doing that, they're going to be, not doing their best to serve their constituents, probably creating discontent, and also creating a lot of like friction and challenges that can show up in other places. So I think that there are all these things that kind of make it hard or make it harder for government and public sector entities to do great on the web, although clearly they can. But I think it's worth calling out also that the need to do great, like the demand from the users is very real, and the bar is getting raised constantly. And there's a lot of cool progress that's getting made. I'm very excited to see some of the stuff that Luis will be able to talk about later. But that's an important part of the dynamic, I think, that's happening now. So how do we think about the value of Drupal in the context of these entities? And you might think of this as like, everybody here, I'm sure, has no doubt that Drupal is a great solution. But you might think of this as, how do we sort of take a step away from that and think about how we would talk to somebody who's not aware of Drupal, or is new to Drupal, or might even be skeptical of Drupal? Like, how do you position this technology as a great answer for some of these challenges, particularly in places where there might be a different technology that's the incumbent, or people might not have the experience that gives them the confidence with Drupal? So I will want to anchor this around this word composability. And this is definitely one of the buzzwords of the year for our industry. You hear it getting thrown around all over the place. But it's not unlike Composer and how we manage our PHP packages, but it's really kind of a bigger picture thing than that. Composability is about like, how do we actually make use of an ecosystem of software to achieve our mission? Because the reality is, it's not one technology. It never was one technology, but I think for a long time people were sort of being sold on the idea that, oh, if I just buy this one thing, it'll solve all my problems, even though that was kind of a false promise to begin with. The industry has very much woken up to the fact that, there are going to be multiple technologies that are necessary to work together to deliver the experience that the constituent wants, and also be able to tap into the data and the services that the providing entity also has. Like, some of those things are going to be probably some of that legacy technology we talked about before. Some of it could be newer technologies that are being brought into the picture. And the question is, where and how do these things come together so that people can get the experience they need, and that the service can be provided in the way that it needs to be? Well, I think, as I said before, right, this idea that there's a monolithic product that does all the things, I'm stealing this image from an analyst presentation that we talked about earlier from Forrester, and this are their words, not mine. But it seems convenient. It sounds good, right? Yeah, just buy one device that does all the things you need. But as anybody who actually ever owned one of those things they're not that great, because they're not very good at any particular thing. They're kind of clunky. They're difficult to use because there's too many buttons, and ultimately, like, they don't keep up with the times. You buy one thing to do all the things, pretty soon you're buying other things to plug into it anyway, because the source for the media, in the case of the combination DVD, VCR, right? The sources you want to be able to plug into keep proliferating, and those little aux plugs on the front aren't even enough. There's been this mirage in the industry, like I was saying, that you could just present an all-in-one package that like really solves all the problems, and it's just not true. In our market, that is where these traditional DXPs, digital experience platforms, have historically positioned themselves, like particularly over the past 6-7 years. You've seen this, and it's just not working out. Right, like this data that I'm showing you, this chart is from recommendations on Gartner's Insight Networks. That's another industry analyst, and they're saying like, hey, how likely are you to recommend one of these other things to appear, or if you were starting a new job? And the DXPs on this list they're just not as highly ranked, and it's because people would say, oh, well, we tried that, it didn't work, it cost a lot of money, spent a lot of time, didn't get a lot of value out of it. There's got to be a better way. And the better way is increasingly looking at how to leverage open source for the CMS component in a thoughtful way. That's kind of our approach at Pantheon, right? So there's the monolithic suite providers. That's what DXPs really are. They're a bunch of different software that's bundled together into a suite. Usually, with all these companies and many others, what they do is they go out and acquire or buy existing things. So it's not even software that was built to work together in the first place, but they sort of present it that way, and usually have a pretty slick demo for it. But it's a suite of tools, and they're separate tools with different UIs, and the integrations may not be all they're cracked up to be, at least from the way the demo put it together. But the sell is, get all the things from us, and all your problems will be solved. And the reality is that the complexity of implementing those suites takes a lot longer. The price tags are a lot higher. If you're going outside the world where there's an open source component, like the expertise to do this is actually pretty hard to find. So you don't even have that many different folks you could work with. And at the end of the day, a lot of the people that bought into this notion, they aren't using all the stuff that's in the suite, either because they couldn't get around to implementing it, or because they found out that it wasn't actually very good. It was kind of like a little B or C grade thing that the company acquired and integrated so they could say they did something, but that the actually good software that they need to get the job done is out there and it's from someone else. So they're integrating that anyway. It's just not a happy story. Whereas, on our side, we see this notion of a composable stack of technologies, because that's what people are doing. Even people who use Adobe or Sitecore, they're adding on other tech to it inevitably. And so you might as well just embrace that as your reality and think about composability and the ability to shift things in and out of the stack and maintain and make changes over time as a core capability that you need. So you can build the right stack with the right components at the right time. And this, I think, is particularly impactful when you're able to think about escaping the monolith, not just in the context of, hey, here's a suite of software that you bought from one vendor that's supposed to solve all your problems, but actually also when you think of escaping the monolith as, we have one installation of our CMS that everyone has to share. You can go overboard with this, but I've seen so many organizations, when there's an organization that has complexity internally, it has different teams, it has different groups, it has different parts of it that have different missions. When you force all of those different things to share a single instance, to share a single website, sometimes what happens is it doesn't work out so well. You have too many stakeholders, too many chefs in the kitchen, can't really decide to prioritize or get anything done. You can't bring enough resources to bear, and it becomes a real bottleneck. So, when people think about breaking out and having more than one website, or they embrace the reality that they already do have more than one website and they need to rationalize it, there's typically these trade-offs between scalability and flexibility, or you might think of the cost and flexibility. You could say everyone gets to hire their own top flight digital agency and implement their own bespoke CMS. And that would give infinite flexibility, but it would cost a lot, and you would have a lot to maintain over time. There's other places where you try to build one website that solves all the problems. That usually it ends up being not very flexible and costs a lot and is very difficult to maintain over time. If you take the multi-site approach and you really stick to it, do it by the book, nobody gets anything special, just do it cookie cutter, everyone gets their own templates, but that's it, right? That gives you scale because that can be done cost effectively. But it's not flexible. People, just all can't all necessarily share the same cookie cutter. But if you think about Drupal, and if there was a way to deliver Drupal and run it so that you could actually have tens, hundreds, or even thousands of instances, and it wouldn't be such a difficult challenge to manage, that would be kind of the best of both worlds. And that's what we've helped a lot of organizations with when they're thinking about, I can't just have a website. I'm going to have many websites. And in fact, I need those websites potentially to be managed by different teams. Some of them might be all managed centrally, but others of them, they've got their own budget. They're going to do their own thing. But I need some guardrails on what they're allowed to do, like figuring out those trade-offs. If you can figure it out the right way, it's very empowering because it lets more people inside the organization tap into the full power of Drupal versus having to just take what they're given in the multi-site or be confronted with the cost of doing it all from scratch, which might put it out of their reach. So let's think about how people work. I'm going to take this down a level before turning over to Luis to talk about this stuff in particular. I want to talk about how people's work changes and what the technical changes are when you shift towards this composable environment type approach. And really the point of all this is, like I was saying a second ago, to deliver and maximize the benefits of open source to the most people. So when we're doing this right, we're actually delivering a really great CMS implementation. So your content creators are really empowered. They can self-serve, they can create, rich content and experiences. They can do more than just post new blogs. They can actually build whole things because, they've got the power of Drupal at their disposal. And the developers have shifted, many web developers are still stuck in this mode a lot more than they would like. They've shifted out of implementing a bespoke thing for some page that nobody else knows how to build, or working through a poorly implemented CMS that only a developer can actually operate, right? They're focusing on actually delivering reusable parts and components that those downstream content creators can then pick up and use. And they might still get called in to work on a very special page or a very special event or something like that from time to time, and that can be fun. But the majority of their time is actually kind of like making a system. And the high-level developers, the architects and the tech leads, they're actually thinking about those core integrations with other systems. They're thinking about CMS architecture, not like trying to chase down a particular bug. And IT, who, in many legacy organizations are kind of like gatekeepers, right? They sort of, lock everything up in order to meet their non-negotiable mandates around security and compliance and stability. They actually shift into one where they're able to give people more room to run because they have oversight. They have governance. They can actually take stock of what's going on, and they don't need to be the Department of No. They can say, yeah, go ahead and do it because we can make sure that you're going to stay on the well-lit path, and that nothing untoward will happen. And think about this from a technology perspective, right? How does the technical practice change as you break out of the monolith, right? So like the content creator was talking about before, like they're using like Layout Builder. They're consuming these components. They have they're being given a Drupal admin UI that's actually been thoughtfully implemented. That's one of the things that you get to when you get some more time in your budget and your team has more velocity. You don't just have to worry about getting the design for the front end done. You can actually think, what's the best experience for all of the regular administrative staff that are going to have to use this thing. You can get really good at empowering them, which is awesome. The developers, they're working with things like design systems, they're working with APIs, they're working with those integrations, and then they're on a select basis when it's worthwhile, they're going in and doing site-specific code, or maybe a little custom Drupal config that's more advanced than what you would expect those content creators to do for themselves. The architects and tech leads are thinking about managing Drupal as a distribution, not as a one website. They're thinking about, hey, what is the common code that everybody needs? What is the content architecture that we want to enforce? What are the guardrails we put in? What are the central systems and APIs that we integrate once so they're done correctly for everyone? And then they can hand that down to the developers to do any site-specific stuff if necessary. And IT has shifted again. They're in this governing mode. They're keeping track of releases. They're keeping track of updates and uptime. They probably have this integrated into some more global observability tool that's helping them track not just what's going on with the web team and the websites, but other critical systems as well. And this is just a much more healthy and dynamic and high-functioning organizational model than typically what we've had in the past, where content creators are just copying and pasting stuff out of Word docs. Developers are going in to fix formatting in individual posts. Architects and tech leads are just like trying to firefight and chase down bugs, and IT is just putting up roadblocks around everything so that they can maintain security. We want to help people shift into that better mode of operation. So with that, I want to turn it over to Luis to talk about the city of Chattanooga as a specific case study. Take it away, Luis.
Thank you for the information, and a good thing about what everything Josh just mentioned. You see a lot of details here, how the challenge came to us, how Drupal and of course PANTHEON was crucial to find the best solution, how we're moving forward here. So initially talking a little bit of city of Chattanooga. So city of Chattanooga is a Tennessee fourth largest city. It's one of the two main cities of East Tennessee and has a population something around 108,000 people. As you may imagine, like they have a long and legacy system, and they want to modernize that. And among all the goals, the main goal is to better meeting the needs of residents through a revamped user and service-oriented design. On top of that, there are a common challenge on public sector and government that in this case, this solution fits like a glove. So moving forward here, talking about the challenge, the main pain points for them, they need a modern design system to support and revamp their brand in the way that they show themselves to the public. They need an optimized way to create actions or to handle actions with a better user experience, and also better way to improve the SEO from the platform. The architecture, of course, just like any kind of need from the government, needs to scale in a good way that can support not only this new phase of the project, but how that's gonna evolve for the following years. Accessibility is something important for the device size, for the accessibility per se. Mobility, nowadays everyone use mostly devices than a PC, so they need to improve that as well. And last but not least, they want to build something that they won't need to revisit every year. And an important key part of this process is to understand the data that is being transitioned on the platform, and be able to react and evolve that in the faster way to improve the lead time. Moving forward, so automatically Drupal and PANTHEON fits like a glove for this challenge. So you see one of the best and most security and scalable solution to support this kind of challenge. We have cases that we have more than 3 million users, and some of them access at the same time solutions, and we're able to scale that as long as you provide the right architecture. Framework is good, the SaaS platform is great, so a mix of both will deliver what we're looking for in a robust platform. Flexibility, you can start getting out of the gate a lot of functionalities, but also you have the ability to improve them. We connected with what Josh was mentioned, like a composable solution, something that not deliver what we have today, but how you're going to coexist with the current enterprise architecture, how you're going to evolve with that. So those kind of solutions or those frameworks and platforms are well suited for this kind of challenge. you are able to implement everything that you go from the design analysis, UI, UX, and apply this better employee experience. And of course, everything related to editorial content, Drupal is one of the best on the market. You can have whatever you need that and customize in the best way to suit your challenge. But also if you need to build something great on top of that, you are able to do it. Before I move to the last 2 points in this item, so out of the gate, you can see that those solutions will be the best solutions to start to plan how we will support our client in this journey, because you have a little bit of both flexibility with something that you can start strong. And in this kind of on vertical, it's really important how you manage budgets, how you manage costs, and Drupal can play really good on that, like an open source platform. The costs and the way that you can implement and design that kind of solution with Pantheon, it's really generate a lot of value to the client, and was really well suited for this challenge. And as I mentioned, they did something that don't live only for 1 year or 2 years, but can be improved without replace it for the years from now. And as an open source platform with a huge community behind it, Drupal proves to be one of the best for this challenge. A little bit of details around the main points of the solution here. So we're implementing responsive design. We got a specific team that allow us to just finish or apply our vision from a design system perspective. We have a more mobile first approach. Everything is responsive. That solve 100% this kind of challenge. Of course, strong editorial features are there in the core, and also we're adding additional modules to support that. So we're able to give them a way to create an organized and a clear experience according to whatever they need to add. And that was crucial also to allow us to build a structure that can serve better the citizen and support also specific divisions on this kind of public sector, and allow them to create content faster with purpose. Performance, we are right off the gate applying Drupal cache. We are applying additional caching layer, connecting that with global CDN, and this partnership among the framework and Pantheon is working pretty good to support that. One of the main goals is to initially just translate to Spanish and English. Drupal, as we are aware, has one of the most complete multilingual frameworks, and you are able to customize that. One addition here, we are also applying a few features around artificial intelligence using OpenAI to support them to speed up the translation process. Also, there are some, this is not defined yet, but we are doing some prototype on how we can support the SEO with artificial intelligence as well, and have been using other projects and really doing a great job to speed up the process and reduce the lead time when you produce content. And last but not least, security. When you start something, is there, is revised by the community. We can apply double check from our perspective in the development process, but we're using SecKit to protect everything related to vulnerability breaches. We have additional modules to control password and session, handling also login access control, among other things. And of course, everything that we got over the vulnerability scan pre-launch, we are able to either fix right away or find a module that can support us before we even think to build something to support that. And if you get curiosity around a few features, so we are creating a new comprehensive citywide calendar. We opt to sort by neighbors, submit community live events, and so on. We are leveraging an opt-in alert system that will support it in a better way compared with the current solution. Keep them informing, timely updates. Better ways to apply payments options for city bills, parking tickets, and so on, among other new features. Not only the revamped app modernization, but there are also new features that will be connected with our search on the UI, UX, and how we're facing the user experience here. So what are I'll start talking about the takeaways that we can get that, because that is common in this kind of vertical and sector, and then I'll give back to Josh to complete whatever he feels comfortable on it. The main takeaways, you can have a lot of takeaways, friends, but the most common takeaways we see in this kind of challenge, for this kind of sector. User experience is everything. Before you think on technology, before you think on architecture, you need to understand the purpose, what we're doing. That in this case, we have a legacy with a lot of not only complaints, but a lot of feedbacks from the citizen. And we could dig into more to understand the areas that were more important for us to create and improve this user journey. And that was key to start to design the solution, and then use the technology to apply that solution was the easy part. Normally, not only public sector, but government, if you find better ways to mix efficiency with the low costs, and not only on licensing costs for platform, licensing costs for frameworks as well, but how you can make they use the most of their money and have a quick overview, that is half of the success path for them to engage and see results. So when you have Drupal with Pantheon and solutions like that, that supports a lot how we can increase a value engineer for them and find better solutions for them. And last but not least, it's important to create something that lives longer, that gives a lot of data. You structure well how you are continually getting feedback, and not only get a proper feedback, but have behind that a framework that allow you to apply faster, reduce the lead time. This is important. Those are the three main factors, main takeaways that we normally, not only for this vertical, but mainly for this kind of vertical, are crucial to have success in any solution that you provide there. That's it. Thank you. Really appreciate it.
Yeah, I'm just going to go back to hit on one other point, and then we got a question on implementation. I thought there might be people have other questions on implementations. Feel free to fire away. The thing that I would just say, the key takeaway to echo from what I've seen, and again, I don't have, unfortunately, named customers that I can bring up as a case study, but we have a lot of customers at Pantheon particularly in the state and local government space. And that idea of adopting a platform that's a long-term fit, super important for these organizations and institutions. And I think also really key is getting, you spoke to this, Luis. It's like, we're not just redoing the website and then saying we're done with it. We're putting in place a platform and a framework and a tool that we can use to continue to innovate and deliver services on an ongoing basis. That's something that I'm seeing as a really, really important shift in our market, away from the notion of just doing it all in one big relaunch, like the website relaunch pattern, and thinking about it more as like, well, we do need to get some new technology live, but that's sort of like the beginning of the exciting part of the project, not the end where we just dial back and go into maintenance mode for 3 years until we overhaul everything again. Like the ability to put in place something where you get a project live, and then you immediately know what the next thing you're working on is, and you start to iterate and release new capabilities, and you can be more responsive to what people's needs are and kind of what the real world feedback is that way, which ultimately just, I think, leads to happier customers, happier teams, and better outcomes. So I'll say with that, thank you all for your time. I know it's a Thursday near the end of the year, so I appreciate everyone showing up. It looks like Richard has one question on the implementation, and then I actually have a couple too, if you don't mind answering a question for me. But anybody else, feel free to fire away on chat. I'll stop the screen share so we have more visibility. So Richard asks, he'd love to learn more details about your open AI translation integration. Is there anything more you can share there?
Yeah, I can share. Like, and I'll excuse a little bit. Like, there are things that I can share. There are things that I still cannot share because we're going to launch soon. So there are things that I need to protect. But before the open AI, I can share, and more than that, like we're using for other projects as well. We're using there's a common and public module that connects already, has a great interface with OpenAI. You need to basically hire a license from OpenAI, and then automatically this module connects you, and you have a lot of features to be used out there, like autocomplete, content generation, and translation included. So it's not only one functionality, but we are using specifically this one for City of Chattanooga. For other projects in the same module, we use it to create content. And when I say create content with meaningful, as long as you know how to use the module. autocomplete content and enhance the content as well. It's the same module, and the usage is pretty easy, like any module that are complete that we have for Drupal. You just install the module, get an account on OpenAI, connect both, and then play around and see how your content editor team can just use the module, pretty much. I hope I answered that, but feel free to shoot more questions about it.
Oh yeah, do you know the specific module name?
We're using for this one, I'm confirming if I'm not wrong, OpenAI ChatGPT integration.
All right. I was going to ask for that. You spoke to the kind of the content editor experience. What is the what's your team's approach to like implementing the admin or especially the content editing UI? Because I know that's always a hot topic.
Yeah. We got at Scienti normally for each project that we tackle, we engineers just one piece of everything that we tackle. We bring a strategy team, which then you have everything, understanding the business challenge and also the technology challenge. We have a UI UX team, so then we understand. We do interviews with the public or the client and so on, and then we understand the main pains from them. This is the first and most important part before we start to think on design a solution and tackle the technology part. After that, we normally have an approach to create a design system that supports then creating molecules, create specific areas, and that can be used to rebranding, not only for digital platforms, but also to apply entire rebrand for the company. And that fits as well in a platform like that. That is the first step. The second step is it starts to understand which kind of engineering piece will be connected with this vision, and then start to speed up the development process with low cost or with the better cost for analyze the value engineering. And that's where our expertise on the CMS part, on the platform part, Drupal comes to the conversation. And together with that comes DevOps, comes the scalability, build versus buy, and normally that's where PANTHEON, it's a good fit connected with that. So if we're talking at a high level, those are the main steps on where our team well connected with that structure that you show. We have a strategy team, we have the engineering team, and then project management team are involved with that, just handling everything. Normally we run small cycles, validating our proposition, adjusting the results, but then it's a smoothly process.
Cool. Yeah. Start with the why, and then sort of design the solution, and then figure out the technology. Yep. Have you found typically that integrating a design system with Drupal is a good fit?
It is. We have opportunities that we even connect or have automation connecting that to reduce the gap, or using specific systems that generate the module, and not only the UI UX can work on the same component alongside with the engineering team. So that's a great approach that normally, depending on how faster we need to scale or how omnichannel we need to work. And I will give you one example here. We have companies, and not in this case, but we have companies that needs a design system to be applied to create components in a composable platform. And those components will be used by the digital platform, but also for other areas on omnichannel. This is the best way ever to use this kind of systems to integrate teams. And after that, the same component will be integrated with Drupal. In this case, we can have multidisciplinary teams working on the same instance as you describe it over there. Development team talking on the back end, but taking a look on the look and feel from the design system, and that speed up the process. And of course, you can reduce a lot of the cost and improve velocity on it.
Yeah. Again, if you're developing with reusable parts, things can go a lot faster than if you're doing every experience bespoke. The last question I have, and then I guess if there's none other from the chat, we can give people a little bit of time back. Is one of the reasons to do that, besides consistency, right? If you're using the same components, the experience is consistent. If you're, that's one benefit I could see. You just brought up cost. That's another interesting one. Is there a benefit that you get to accessibility with the design system as part of the sort of architecture?
Yeah. Accessibility is part of the analysis because we look at from a user experience as well. The modules and everything that we apply from engineers are the second step. First step is to understand who will using that, if we're finding the right patterns to follow by region, by general accessibility and everything else. So design system is crucial in this part, and it's a practice that sometimes is tough to have in companies that doesn't have those three pillars working together. But it's crucial, and normally they are analyzed and validated and applied before the implementation starts. When the implementation starts, then it's easy. It's most matter to, and I'm talking about Drupal here, but that can extend to other languages as well. Either way, find a module that does whatever you need, or just find a way to adjust or adapt to that, from the simple things, from different types of words or letters, or how to translate something for who has some kind of disability to hear things. So everything you are allowed to apply and fix, improving, basically based on what you need. And of course, generic accessibility from device point of view, from non-functional requirements, everything. Then after that is completed by the engineering team, and solution normally is there too.
Yeah, that makes a ton of sense. And I see you dropped the link to that module in the chat. So
Yeah,
that's
yeah,
great.
I talk about the module, but I'll try to get my team here the exactly link. So that's the
Yeah.
link that the module we use mostly.
Cool. Are there any other questions from the folks here in chat? Oh, yeah, great question from Andrea. Can you speak more about optimizing for mobile first and how that ties in with accessibility?
Yeah, that's a good topic as well, and that's a great conversation. So, responsive design, you can optimize not only for mobile, but it's important that, as I mentioned before, most part of the users nowadays, they don't use too much like PCs or notebooks or laptops. They use mostly devices. So develop for mobile first is an approach that we have been using for years from now, because we need to hit the most part of the crowd, and that, independent of the vertical, that's the same reality. You need to develop from that. Drupal allows you to do that because they have a lot of tons of responsive design. That's a better way to solve problems without to do a specific device customized solution. Sometimes they ask both, sometimes they ask all of them, but normally we try to believe and prove to them that responsive can solve pretty much everything, and you need to overextend to build the same solution iOS focus on Android focus. In the other hand, you might have features that you can achieve only with this specific device development frameworks. Then is where either way you add iOS specific development or Android development on it, but then needs to be really specific. There are features that the device can read only with this development responsive cannot achieve on the same quality, or to achieve the same quality, you spend more money. But most part of the times, responsive design solve 90% of the problems. And it's a really good solution that enterprise companies use all the time.
Yeah,
I can say that for Drupal and web platforms, I'm sorry about that, Josh. With Drupal and web platforms, more than 90%, we solve the need for the client responsive design and mobile first, not needing to build specifically device language app to support that or instead.
Yeah. I can speak to what I've seen with our customers, where thinking about recognizing that at some point in the past, I think it was actually just in the past 3 or 4 years, the amount of web traffic in the US on these devices exceeded the amount on anything else. So it's like, okay, this is where the people are now, and most of the ways that many times people are coming into contact with you, through that medium, because they tapped something in an app, right? Whether it was a social app or something in a search, or something from their email. If the experience they get when they did that tap feels as good as a native mobile app experience, they're going to stick with it and really engage. And that's possible with just regular web development if you're doing it right and you're thinking about hitting that experience bar first, in terms of speed, in terms of responsiveness and so forth. And this does have a tie-in with accessibility. It's not one for one, but when you start thinking about delivering that really great experience on a smaller screen with potentially a slower network and other things, you have to start to simplify what you're delivering. And one of the things that actually really is a challenge with accessibility is super complicated web pages. They're just like the more complexity there is on the web page, the more likely it is to be hard for a screen reader to interpret, or the more likely it is that there's, you know, something in the user experience is going to make it hard for people who are visually impaired to read if you know the contrast isn't there or the font is too small. It also, like, if you're thinking, I mean, this is probably less of a thing in the public sector, but I see this all the time with like businesses where they're constantly like shooting themselves in the foot by putting too many tags on their site, like with, you know, what, it's pop-up ads or extra trackers, right? Once you start to get really serious about the mobile experience, you can't afford to do all that stuff because it slows it down and it makes it look especially like hard to read on a small screen if you've got other things popping over it. So it's not really a one for one in the in yeah, exactly as you're saying, Andrea or Andrea. It's not like a mobile responsive fast site is by default accessible, because it could still be like full of like images with no alt tags and terrible markup. But if you're going down that path, it's a lot easier to build in accessibility from the ground up, which is the right way to do it. If you wait and like to build your whole site and only then think about accessibility, it's going to be painful no matter what, because if you try to you need accessibility in the bones of the site. And when you're thinking about the mobile experience, it's a great time to think about an accessible experience too. All right. Any more from the chat? I'm going to do my awkward Zoom pause. But it's worth it. Sometimes there's another question. Okay, I don't think there is. Great. Well, thank you all for being here with us today. I hope this was helpful and useful. Hopefully we gave you some food for thought and a couple of things to look into. Luis, thanks so much for you know, putting the time in with me and the folks to prep the presentation and being here with us today.
Yeah, thank you. I appreciate the opportunity. Thank for everyone that joined here, and of course, feel free to shoot additional questions later if you need. We find a way to answer that for you, if that's the case too. Thank you. Really appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you, Luis and Josh, and I hope to see you again on this platform.
Yeah.
Sure.
Good information.
Yeah, we should. I'd love to be back. Well, maybe we get another case study. And I missed GovCon this year, but I'm actually close enough to DC now that I can take the train down there. So that's on my to-do list for next year.
Yes, awesome. Thank you, everybody, for joining, and see you next month, or Happy New Year too, because
Yeah.